Well, greeting guys. This is a presentation based on computer practice and for spreadsheet. As we can see, the topic to be covered is going to be based on spreadsheet error reports. Not the entire lesson will focus on error reports. We are going to perform some calculations in connection with this spreadsheet. As we proceed, we might experience some error reports that used to pop up when you perform some calculation on your spreadsheet. So that is very important to know that whatever form of error report you encounter, that is not a technical problem, it's not a computer-related problem, but it's a user-related problem. So you need to know that when you encounter such kind of a report, how to go about rectifying it. Right, as I've indicated, the error reports that we might experience or that we may encounter, it's one #div, #ref, #value, series of hashes, and a #name. So these are some of spreadsheet error reports that we used to encounter. Well, unfortunately, we are going to focus on such reports as we proceed. We are not going to focus on them, but we are going to encounter these reports as we proceed with our spreadsheet. Well, let me go straight to the following spreadsheet. Well, in this spreadsheet, we are going to start by performing certain calculations. As you can see, the spreadsheet is already created. So as it is already created, so we need to perform some calculations. As you can see, we've got names of employees, their clock in time, clock out time, hours worked, their salaries, a gross salary, the deductions like UIF. So you can see the deductions like UIF, the medical aid, VAT, and so on. So all of these are deductions, and finally the net salary. Well, let us get started. Well, the very first formula that we need to perform is based on the so-called time formatting. As you can see, all employees clocked in at 7 o'clock, but their clock out time is not the same. So in order to calculate the number of hours worked by each employee, this is going to be equals to the clock out time minus clock in time. Thereafter, you press enter. Then you can see, as I've said, this is time formatting. So it's time minus time. The output, it's time again. So there's nothing wrong with this output. All you need to do is to format this cell accordingly. All you need to do in order to get the correct answer, you start by putting your formula inside the round brackets. You don't go to the answer, but you click to the answer, then you go to formula bar. Then, because this is time, you multiply it by 24 hours. So you multiply this by 24 hours. When you press enter, it gives you again 12 o'clock midnight. There is nothing wrong again. Now, all you need to do is to go to Format Cells dialog box. There are different options of getting to this dialog box. Then you go to a number here. You can see we have got 2 decimal places. You reduce these decimal places to 0, then you click OK. Then now you can see Simon worked for worked 6 hours from 7 to 1 o'clock. That is 6 hours. So we simply also fill this to get other employees' hours worked. Simple as that. Let us calculate salaries. So how to go about with salaries? We need to find out how much is an hour rate. So that is what we need to find out. How much is an hour rate? Right, let's start by checking that. As you can see, the hour rate is 250. So the formula is going to be equals to 250, which is J2 times number of hours worked. Simon's salary is going to be 1,500. Well, we cannot simply also fill this. I believe now we are familiar with the absolute cell reference. So because J1 it's here, so that simply means J1 must be converted to an absolute cell. So how to do that? You go to formula bar. Not it's J1, no, it's J2 actually. This J2 must be locked, meaning must be converted to an absolute cell. So how do you do that? Well, on your keyboard, you can simply click here and press F4 in order to lock the cell or in order to convert the cell. Right here, I can insert a $sign before J, a $sign after J. Like this, the cell is now locked. When you press enter, the answers remain the same, but now you can also fill. All answers are correct because J2 it's now locked. Right. The so-called gross salary field seemingly it's not required here. So we need to know how to delete a column or how to delete a row that you don't need. So when you delete the column, what happens? When you delete the row, what happens? When you delete the content of the column, what's happening? Right. Let's say we need to delete this. I can simply right click and delete the entire column so that gross salary column is now deleted. Let's move on. We need to calculate the UIF. So the UIF, we have been told it's 2%. So how can we calculate that one? So that is going to be okay. Let's say before we can calculate this, let's say we need to bring back the column that you have deleted, or rather how to insert the column. So now we have noticed how to delete. So if we need to insert, how to do that? Same procedure. You right click, insert. So this gross salary is still needed. So this gross salary, it's something that we still need. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this column of gross salary, please take note. This 1,500 for Simon, it's a pay for 1 day, 6 hours per day. So in order to get a gross salary, so this will be calculated based on monthly basis. Okay, let's say they're working 20 days per month. So this is going to be equals to Simon's salary times Simon's salary times 20. Right. This is the first error report I was talking about on my introduction. So this series of hashes, it's now covered. So you can see this series of hashes. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with my formula or anything, but this error report simply indicates that my column is narrow, so it's unable to accommodate this value. So I will simply adjust the size of the column. So you can see Simon is earning 30,000 rands in a month. Right. We can autofill this to other employees. So they are getting different salaries as they are working different hours each day. Right, moving on, we need to calculate their UIF, which is 2%. So that is going to be a gross salary times 2%. This 600 rands, it's nothing but a 2% of 30,000 rands. So this 600, it's 2% of 30,000 rand. Well, unfortunately, we cannot simply autofill this. The reason we selected 2%, we didn't type it. So G2 must be locked before we can autofill. You go to formula bar, you lock G2, you enter, then you can autofill. G2 it's now locked, meaning G2 is now in absolute cell. All answers now are correct. Take note, we are dealing with their directions here. So right now, we need to get or to calculate their medical aids. Medical aids is 4%. So it's going to be equals to gross salary times 4%. Again, before we can autofill this one, cell H2 need to be locked, need to be converted to absolute cell again. So H2, it's now locked. We can now autofill this. Simple as that. Okay. Now, finally, in connection with their directions, we are going to calculate a VAT. VAT is not given here, but we assume VAT should be 15%. So this is going to be equals to their gross salary times 15%. So we don't need to autofill this one. So this 4,500 rand, it's 4% of 30,000 rand. So we don't need to lock any cell. We don't need to convert any cell to absolute cell here. So we simply autofill. I hope we understand very well the difference between the relative cell and the absolute cell. So right now, we need to calculate all their directions. So we are going to add their directions. So there are also different options of doing that. So we've got three directions. It's a UIF, medical aid, and VAT. So I highlight all these three directions plus the blank cell where I need my answer to be inserted. So I will simply click autofill. The answer it's correct. So we simply autofill this. Take note, this 6,300, it's a sum of UIF plus medical aid plus VAT. So we've got this total directions. Right, now let us calculate finally the net salary. Right, net salary it's an amount that we get after all deductions. So this one is going to be equals to a gross salary minus a total deductions. So when you press enter here, so the deductions here is 23,000. It looks like, okay, yes, it's 23,700. That is a net salary from 30,000. Okay, we can also fill this. Done. Well, let's say we need to calculate initially the highest. As you can see here, we need the highest of net salaries. So highest is nothing but a maximum. So you simply go to maximum here. The selection is incorrect because there is an inclusion of a blank cell. So we don't include the blank cell whenever we make our calculations. Blank cells are regarded as zero sum. They must be excluded from our formula. So we select from here to here, meaning it's a maximum K4 to K8. Then you press enter. This is our maximum. So the lowest is going to be a minimum of net salaries. The procedure is just the same. Minimum. Wrong selection, as you can see. You correct the selection. Again, it's K4 to K8. We are done with a minimum. So the minimum salary here, it's 15,800. The maximum salary is 35,500. We proceed. Now, we need the average. So we go to an average. This is incorrect, so we go to average, same selection, enter, we are done. Then finally, as you can see here, finally it's going to be a total. So a total of what? So we need to get a total of all net salaries. So we need a total of all net salaries for these 5 employees combined. So the net salary, it's going to be auto sum. Wrong selection, we rectify the selection like this. Sum K4 to K8, enter. It's hundreds and 34,300. Well, so this is our final calculation. Right, we indicated that the focus of this presentation is about spreadsheet error reports. So we've already encountered the first one, which was series of hashes. Right. Earlier, I've said something about deleting the column and deleting the content of the column. Right. Let's have a look. What is the difference between deleting the content of the column and deleting the column itself? Right, I will come to gross salary column. I'm not deleting the column itself, but I'm deleting the content. Now have a look what's going to happen to the entire spreadsheet. Right, as you can see, that is, it's nothing but the flexibility of spreadsheet. This indicates that all these calculations relied on gross salaries. Okay, let me undo this one. What if I can delete the content of medical aid? Nothing is wrong. apart from the fact that there are changes in values, right? That is how we delete the content. Again, I'm deleting all deductions, same thing, right? That is all about deleting the content of the cell. Now let us delete the column itself, not the content of the column, but the column itself. Again, I'm going to delete the column for gross. Right click and delete. Now you can see spreadsheet error reports #ref, because all these columns or these cells relied on a deleted column. So now we are getting this spreadsheet error report, which is spreadsheet error report number 2. Okay, I hope you let me undo this. I hope you managed to notice the difference between deleting the column itself and deleting the content of the column. Right. Moving on. Let's say here, I just want to display another spreadsheet error report. Let's say here, I need to make a certain calculation. Let's say, or before this calculation, right, all these answers relied on these calculations. Let me change the content of this cell and type salary. Enter. You can see nothing much, but values are affected. There are changes on numbers. Right. Let's have a look on the value with multiplication. For an example, here it's F4 times H2. Let me change the content of H2 and replace 4% with text salary. See, hash value here, hash value here, hash value in all of these cells. So this is spreadsheet error report number 3. I just want to indicate and also to insist on the fact that these spreadsheet error reports are not related with technicality, but these are user errors. Well, you can see how do we get hash value. It's now like we are multiplying with a text. Spreadsheet, it's an app for calculations, so it cannot calculate with text. When we calculate, we are using values or we are using numbers. So you can see how do we get a hash value. Right, let me reverse this again. So now we did manage to display 3 different spreadsheet error report. That was a series of hashes. That was hash value and hash ref. Again, let's say I need to perform a certain calculation here. Equals to this D8 divide by F1. Then you can see that in F1 there is nothing. F1 is just a blank cell. Remember, the blank cell in spreadsheet are treated as zeros. So if the cell is blank, the spreadsheet regards that particular cell as 0. So now I'm multiplying D8 with F1. F1 it's 0. Press enter. You can see the hash div error report. you can see the hash div error report. So that is how we get this spreadsheet error report. So if you encounter any spreadsheet error report, you need to know that it's not a computer-related problem, it's not a spreadsheet app-related problem, but is your own problem. So you need to rectify that mistake on your own. Well, I hope this presentation gave you some clarity in connection with few calculations as well as the spreadsheet error report that you tend to encounter when you are working with spreadsheet. This was a spreadsheet presentation for computer practice and for. Thank you.